Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Calaveras Community Television. This morning we're coming to you from hard by Murphy's Creek, or Angels Creek as you prefer. When it comes through Murphy's, it's Murphy's Creek, and of course further down the road it becomes Angels Creek. And I'm here again today with Dwayne Anito, who is the chairman of the board of UPA, and we'll tell you what that is in just a moment. If you recall, our last get-together was, my golly, a year ago now, right here at Murphy's Creek. And the title of this series is Where's the Water? And of course, we're still talking about where's the water, where's it going to, where's it coming from, and so on. Dwayne, let's review a little bit what we talked about in the past. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Almost forgot that. What we talked about in the past was the fact that UPA is working as a subcommittee. I guess that's not the proper word. The overall committee to UPUD and the City of Angels. Explain that to our viewers.
Well, the Utica Water Authority is made up of two members from Union Public Utility District and the City of Angels, two city council members, and an at-large member, Diane Cornish. And basically, it is responsible for making sure that the water runs in Angels Creek. We do that by operating two power plants, the Murphy's Power Plant and the Angels Power Plant, and we use the money that those power plants make to get the water here for the consumer's use.
Now, you are currently operating under an agreement with FERC, and tell our viewers what FERC is.
The Federal Energy Regulation Commission, which grants licenses to organizations to run power plants and use the natural resources throughout the United States.
And under this agreement with FERC, you are going to be operating for, another 30 years?
Well, actually, I think we're down to about 25 now.
Okay.
So we'll be coming up for relicensing at that time.
Well, that's rather important because, as we'll discuss in a little more detail later in the show, the day may come when you folks are going to need a little more water down this way, and so FERC gets back into the game and becomes a very important player. As a matter of fact, the player, because if they don't approve it, you don't get it, right?
That's absolutely right, and it's a matter of, right now at least it would appear that the two main organizations that would be arguing about how much water comes this way would be NCPA, the Northern California Power Association, which runs the Collierville Power Plant and takes some of the water that used to run down this way and puts it through our plant. And of course, when the license comes up, it'll be a big political football, I'm sure, and a big argument over whether more water can come this way, and I'm sure NCPA may very well be asking for more water to go their way. So it's going to be a rather hectic and I'm sure a very long and drawn out and controversial process when that license comes up.
And so UPA becomes, of course, a very, very important player in this whole ball game. And for our newer viewers or ones who maybe missed our previous shows, let's explain the makeup of UPA.
Well, it started when the PG&E license, which PG&E used to run this, the PG&E license was going to expire in '96, and there was a movement afoot locally here to try and take over that PG&E. Well, PG&E. All right. This is going to be very complicated, and I'll try and make it very short. PG&E went to the local organizations and asked them to support the PG&E license, which we did. And then midway through the process, PG&E decided that they weren't going to renew their license. They were going to pull their options for the license. And CCWD stepped in with the City of Angels and UPUD and tried to take over the PG&E license in conflict with NCPA, who had another proposal for the license, and eventually a compromise was worked out between the UPA, which was CCWD, UPUD in the City of Angels on one side, and NCPA on the other side, that NCPA would continue to send some of the water this way, basically 2/3 of the water this way, and 1/3 of the water would go to NCPA to run through Collierville, and that's how basically it was settled. And of course, that 1/3 is working, and it's not as good as it would be if it were the whole 88 cubic feet per second, but the 50 cubic feet per second is working. But as we use more and more water, when it comes time for this license to run out, I'm sure that UPA will be trying to justify the need for more water coming this way.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of things that I think we ought to go back and explain a little bit. First of all, I know that many of our viewers in the past and currently are wondering why it was that PG&E suddenly decided to back out of this project. And as I recall, and correct me, Dwayne, if I'm wrong on this, that was at about the time when PG&E decided that they could no longer afford some of their smaller powerhouse operations. Is that right?
That would be my understanding, and the idea was that they decided to get out of the power making, the hydro making, right, because they still had Diablo Canyon and their big nuclear power plants, but basically that they were going to go to distribution for small areas, and basically got out of the water business altogether.
All right, let's talk for a moment now about the flow, because obviously that's extremely important to you. And you mentioned that the primary allocation to UPA was 50 CFS.
Well, it varies. During the big concession that UPA made in order to get the water during the summertime, which is when we felt it was needed, right, was to give the 1/3 to NCPA during the summertime if they would deliver the 2/3. In the wintertime and in the fall and spring, the flow drops sometime down to 35, so that it varies greatly from the peak flow during the summer months is 50 cubic feet per second, and it drops as much as 35.
And now, Dwayne, the next question would be, when that extra water is coming to you, does that help you either hydroelectrically in the power plant that UPUD has, or any other way? Can you use that extra water to good advantage?
Well, it all depends on where it's being used. For example, if UPUD takes the water, it cannot go through either powerhouse. If the City of Angels takes the extra water, then it will be able to go. Then it will only lose the generation at the Angels powerhouse. The reason for the extra water would be as UPUD continues to grow and take more water out. If we had more water, we would be able to run it through the powerhouse and generate the extra electricity that allows us to get the water here for no cost.
Let's talk a little bit now, because I think it's time in this interview to get to this. Let's talk a little bit, Dwayne, about filthy lucre, if you will. One always hates to talk about money unless it's good news, and in your case, primarily it's been good news, hasn't it? You had a couple. Let me set the stage a little bit for the folks. You had a couple of loans that were outstanding that you needed to make in order to get into business, UPA, and you had some good plans for paying those loans off. How's that coming?
Well, actually, there were 3 loans. There were 2 different loans from CCWD and one with LaSalle Bank, and we had a $3.5 million debt that we needed to take care of. And fortunately, since power prices have been explosive and been high and not low, we have now got that down to about, let's call it approximately 1.4 million. So in 10 years, we've managed to reduce that loan considerably, and it's gone very well financially. Even with the fire that destroyed the flume and everything, had it not been for the fire, I think we would have had everything paid off now. But of course, we had that setback. But no, financially, things are going well.
Good. That's great. You did mention to me, however, that you had expected that you might have CCWD entirely paid off by this time. but you had to keep a little dough in the coffers for some possible unexpected contingencies. What was that about?
Well, right now, UPA's biggest problem, since financially has been taken care of or is doing so well, is the pressure that we're getting from people who wish to develop property along our canal, along our forebay, our afterbay, and that type of thing. And I know it's very frustrating for them to come to UPA and say, we need an easement here for a power line or something like that. And because we're trying to protect our license, and it's necessary for us to deal with FERC and keep FERC happy, you have to go through all the steps, which includes DWR, it includes archaeological.
What's DWR?
Department of Water Resources, the SHPO, which is the state archives, Indian relics and that. And I know you're only running a line 80 feet, and you're saying, what is... And it's very frustrating for us, it's very frustrating for them, it's very frustrating for everybody. And consequently, what has happened is we have some development work being done where there's runoff that could be coming into the afterbay at Murphy's, and we're in court trying to make sure that everything is done right and we don't have a bunch of runoff. But in case it's not done right, we've had to hold up about $200,000 to put aside in case we have to dredge the Murphy's afterbay if this winter, when the roads and stuff that's been laid washes in there, we need to get it out. So.
All right, let's explain to our viewers, if we can, try and paint a visual picture for them, Dwayne, as to just exactly where the forebay is and where the afterbay is and where the construction is going on in between.
Okay, as you drive up Highway 4 out of Murphy's, you will see the Murphy's Powerhouse off to the right, and the afterbay is right there after the powerhouse.
You can see it from the road very nicely.
Very nicely, and I don't know if you can see the penstock that comes down from the top of the hill, but the forebay is up on top of the hill right above the powerhouse, and the people who are doing the development work are east of the powerhouse up on that ridge or that mountainside there, and that's where the work's being done there, so that any kind of rain or anything like that, when heavy rains, particularly like this last spring, if the disturbed earth is not protected, it's going to wind up in the afterbay.
And of course, the reason why there is a concern there is because UPA takes water out of the penstock, which is up near the dam, McKay's Reservoir, and there is a canal that brings it down to the penstock.
Right, and of course all along that canal we continue to have people develop, and of course they're using septic systems, which are going, if they fail, are going to go right into the canal. And any development they do, it's the same problem. If the ground is not in our canal and comes down to the forebay, which is also... And that was the major problem after the fire, was how much of that disturbed earth was going to wash into the afterbay. It appears that it was not as bad as we thought it was going to be, so consequently we haven't had to dredge the forebay. But that again is another problem, that as we continue to pick up more and more debris coming down into the forebay, again it'll eventually have to be dredged.
There must be some way of mitigating these problems by the developer, which of course the developer probably wouldn't really like, because that probably entails more money. But any discussion along those lines between UPA and the developer?
Yes, UPA has, and we have written up an agreement asking the developer to sign, which says that they will take care of that they will do the mitigating to UPA's guidelines or specifications. And of course, I think the big problem right now is we have not been able to get a price tag on, if we could settle on a price tag, it's going to cost $100,000, or it's going to cost $20,000, or it's going to cost $1 million. It's going to make a big difference on how agreeable the developer is going to be. So there are and we are in negotiations and trying to work it out, and we have an appearance. Hopefully this will all be solved because we do have a court appearance coming up. We have a temporary restraining order right now.
Oh, okay.
And there's a court hearing to see whether we want to make it permanent or not, and hopefully we'll be able to come to some sort of an agreement that will be satisfactory to everyone.
And that hearing will be held where?
It'll be in San Andres at the courthouse.
Superior Court?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Very good. All right, now let's assume we've gotten these mitigations taken care of and everything's running hunky-dory. Now we're going to pay off the rest of the loans, this year, next year? Timeline on that?
Well, again, how much power and revenue are we?
Well, given the current heat wave, what is this, the 10th day now in triple digits, I think Sacramento said, the prices aren't going to go down.
Well, they're up to 60 now, so that's 15 above our budget. So once again, we would expect to be starting to pick up a surplus again. And I would think that, I don't know that we have a timeline. Yeah. I would like to think that in the next 5 years, if things continue the way they have, 5-6 years, maybe we will have the whole thing paid off. And then, of course, it becomes where do we go from there?
Right.
And the big problem would be developing a fund to relicense the project. The feeling was that it cost NCPA and PG&E about $5 million on the last license. So it's going to take us another $8 million to get, so that we need to start developing that fund. And of course, I think that somewhere along the line there needs to be some reward to UPUD and the City of Angels for putting this together. So hopefully it will continue to develop enough revenue that we'll be able to also give some back to the UPUD and the City of Angels, who have invested already over $100,000 in the project. Because the power prices were so low when we started, that we had to assess the members' funds. So there is money that's due those entities.
Well, and you heard Dwayne say that we're about 25 years away from relicensing with FERC. Now, for you younger viewers, 25 years may seem like a long time, but we're here to tell you that it's going to be gone in a twinkling.
Faster all the time.
Faster all the time. It's a little like I heard the other day that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer to the end you get, the faster it goes. And it's going to be the same way with this plan if you folks haven't done a lot of pre-planning and gotten your ducks in a row, your money in order, and so on to deal with FERC 25 years down the road.
I've been very happy the way the UPA board has been functioning, and I am sure that they're going to start that fund and do it right, so that we will have the money in place to do the surveys and the necessary work.
All right, I think to wrap this up, I would like to question you, Dwayne, regarding this lovely flow of water that we've got going behind us. Right now, your guesstimate a little bit ago was that it's running at about, 70?
Somewhere between 60 and 70 is my guess. It's been higher, but only because of the flows that the heavy spring rains, NCPA has not been able to use all the water, so we have been getting extra water this way.
And to reiterate, I believe you said to me a bit ago that the plan originally, when you took over from PG&E, was that this stream could hold 88 feet per second without flooding the park. Is that still about the approximate amount?
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Now, Murphy's is growing rather rapidly for Murphy's. Angels Camp is growing like crazy. Plus, they've got the golf course out there and so on. Is 88 going to be enough someday?
Someday?
Now we're looking at 25, 30 years down the road.
As I mentioned to you earlier, I thought UPA's biggest, not only having the money available, what I think we're going to have to fight the political battle to try and get more of the water than we have right now. I don't know whether we will go, hopefully we could get all 88, but I don't know if we will be able to get all 88 or not. But it would simply be a matter of opening the tunnel tap and turning more water this way rather than going down to Collierville. And I know that anybody from CPA who is watching this is already saying, boy, let's get ready to fight these guys because we don't want to, it's going to be a major controversial issue.
Sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's brought you up to date for this year, if you will, on where's the water, where it's going, where it's coming from, how it's being used, and how particularly UPA, i.e. UPUD and the City of Angels, is using that water, and also how they're using the money from the electrical power that's being sold, being generated by that water. Once again, I want to thank Dwayne Anito for being with us. He, of course, again, the chairman of UPA. And Dwayne, we really appreciate you taking your time and solving some of these questions for us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
So, for Paul Muller, our producer and director, this is Merle Lucken saying, we'll see you on Calaveras Community Television.
Cut!
Cut! It's a wrap!